Hello and welcome to the Magic Mirror Podcast. I'm your host, Con the Trinket Mage, and with me is my co-host, 33 Elk.
Hello.
Additionally, we have our other co-host, Salubrious Snail.
Hello there.
Who I understand is sick, and then I'm also kind of sick.
Yeah, this is a very sick podcast.
This is a very sick podcast. I'll get into that in just a minute. Today's episode is going to be fun. We're going to talk about, I want to share a few stories from, I did 2 CEDH 5Ks last weekend, and I have a funny story from the second one that I'll talk about. And then we're going to talk about value engines in Casual Commander, what they look like, how to find one, how to make one, and their impact on your deck. And then if we got some time, we'll go into a few questions in our Beseech the Mirror section. But before we do all of that, I would love to tell you about today's sponsor, Card Castle, the easy way to sort your collection digitally. And you can start sorting and scanning your cards faster than ever by using their card sorting robot, CardBot. If you want to know if your local game store has a CardBot, there's a link in the description to see that, and there's a link in the description to sign up and make a free account. Plus, if you use our link for the free account, you'll get 1 month of premium access. Thanks to Card Castle for sponsoring the podcast. So last weekend, I was just at LVO, the Las Vegas Open, which we were talking about on the podcast because we're sponsored by Laughing Dragon. And there were 2 CEDH 5K events. I entered one on Saturday. Nothing notable about that. My deck floundered. Doesn't matter. We're going to forget about that. Sunday, I want to tell you about. So I went to this event with Travis Gafford. And after Saturday, me and some of the other people convinced him to enter the CEDH event with his Bracket 4 Alexios deck. Now, his list is not fully optimized for CEDH. There's a bunch of random weird cards like Pip-Boy 3000 that aren't like relevant in CEDH. And I remember he said, I'll join it, ironically, go 0-2 and drop. And I'm going to send you guys, and I'll put a link to this in the description as well. This was a relatively small event, like 41 people. You can see the placements for it.
Oh,
That's crazy.
Oh my God. Okay. For the viewers at home, Travis Gafford got first place for the Sunday.
With 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. The only loss was against me, which is really funny. And I got 6th place on my Jace list. And if you're on EDH Rec Top 16 and you search for commanders and you search for Alexios, the only tournament placement is this one in the last, like, I don't know, year or whatever.
Okay, Alexios is good. Like, it's a good aggro card. It's amazing that Travis placed first. That's so cool. Sorry, I didn't think I was going to have much to say about this in terms of like CEDH talk, but I actually do have a small anecdote. This reminds me so much back at my old game store. There was a bit of a CEDH scene going on there, and the winner of the first CEDH tournament hosted there was like a Rakdos Lord of Riots deck.
I remember you saying this.
I think I might have mentioned it earlier on the podcast too, like on an earlier episode, but this was like the first CEDH tournament. Rakdos Lord of Riots won. And Con, please back me up on this. I'll pass the baton back to you after this. If you have an off-meta deck that like still has like some amount of beating going on in it, you can like really disrupt a CEDH pod.
You are very correct. And that's essentially what happened. So I have an off-meta, not beatdown deck. It's just a bad combo deck, which is Jace. And it struggles a lot because of that. I think I'm actually, for the first time ever, going to change my CEDH deck to Ral. But yeah, that's a different topic. But here's how every single Alexios game went, basically, is he mulliganed to a turn 2 Alexios and then would cast it. Person 1 would go, I'm not countering that. Person 2 goes, I'm not countering that. Person 3 goes, well, if you guys aren't countering that, I'm not countering that. And then I told him beforehand. So one thing to know about tournament CEDH, which is very different than just playing it with your friends or at a local game store, but in big tournaments with big prize pools, draws are kind of like a weird thing in the game. So a win is 5 points, a draw is 1, and a loss is 0. So if you can't win, sometimes trying to force a draw in some way is like a relevant thing to do. And I told them specifically, and I said, here's what you're going to do. They're going to say a deal like, oh, I'm going to counter this and then do that, and then we'll just agree to a draw. And you're going to tell them no, and then attack that person with Alexios. And I watched in real time as he just did this and then won games, like just almost every game.
How would that work out for the opponents if they agreed to a draw? What does that mean?
So if they agree to a draw, everyone at the table gets 1 point as opposed to a loss, which is 0.
Interesting.
So in my final game before the top cut, what happened was I tried to go for the win and then failed. So after that, I just like, I had nothing to do. I was just going to lose. So there's no reason not for me to not counter any other win attempt because I've already spent all my like resources. But if I just stop any win attempt, I can get a draw, which gives me 1 point and bumps me into the top cut.
Interesting. Okay, this is tournament lore. I'm intrigued.
So yeah, so this is actually a really wacky thing about CEDH is there's a lot of decks or players that'll be like, hey, this person's going for a turn 1 win. I have a Pact of Negation. I will cast it if we agree to a draw, because then everyone gets 1 point as opposed to the person going for the turn 1 win losing and getting 0, and the person casting the Pact also losing and getting 0. And you can do shenanigans like this. It's kind of weird. It's like this jank thing. It's something you just have to interact with in tournaments.
Sure.
But yeah, Alexios is not a thing that gets countered. So he just attacked people and then won games. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And I want to use this as like a lesson to people. The CEDH seems like this kind of crazy, impenetrable thing sometimes, but like it's not, honestly. Like the meta's really inbred. Weird things can win. I'm not saying you're going to win your first CEDH tournament ever. I'm not saying that you're going to win every CEDH tournament with Alexios. Like probably not. But, you know, it's not as difficult to get into as one might think. Oh, also I had food poisoning like the whole time. So I would have to pause mid-round to vomit, which was crazy.
That's rough.
Yeah, I got a hot dog at the convention and it like killed me.
That's awful.
Yeah.
Oh, brother. That's so good. Good for Travis. I'm super happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Honestly, I'm just kind of bitter that so the way it works was it was a cut to top 10. The first and second seed automatically make it to the final round. And then the bottom 8 players of that play one more, and the winners of each then move on. And my tiebreakers were slightly worse than the other guy. So I wasn't first seed there. And the game went to time because nobody was able to win. So he defaulted to the finals, which means if my tiebreakers were a little better, I could have defaulted to the finals.
Yeah.
Or if I won, if I had more blue mana, I would have won on my turn, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, that was my LVO experience. A lot of vomit, a lot of CEDH, unrelated. I thought it was really funny.
Oh man, the Aether Spark and Alexios is so funny.
Yeah. The funny
He's playing the Aethers. His deck is so jank. There's so many. I would watch him cast things like Pip-Boy 3000 and then never equip it. It was just literally a nothing play on turn 1.
See, the funny thing is there are like the deck looks mostly optimized, except for there are just like 10 or 15 random cards. So I'm like, okay, sure. But other than that, it looks pretty solid for like a mono red CEDH deck.
This deck, as far as I know, is made specifically to beat one of his friends' decks. Like one person has a specific deck and it is just to beat that person. It's like a pure hatred fueled deck. So any of the weird cards I think are like specific. I don't even know what deck he's trying to counter, to be honest.
This is the messed up thing about like tournament EDH and CEDH in general too. Like, okay, if you like CEDH, this isn't like a rib at you. Like, but there is like a lot of jank things going on under the hood of CEDH, right? That make it like,
oh yeah,
not like a perfect competitive environment per se. And that is like, no one wants to counter Alexios. And this is kind of like the path to victory. No one wants to counter Alexios because you are actively just like shooting yourself when you're doing that. Like you are actively going down on cards for the benefit of the table. But like, why would you want to benefit the table when you need to like win yourself? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's this like push and pull.
When to counter stuff is so interesting, I think, in CEDH.
Yeah. I feel like this is how the Rakdos deck at my old local game store punched through as well. It's like, who wants to counter Rakdos Lord of Riots?
Well, exactly.
And then all of a sudden it's a 6/6 Flampler coming your way. And then the Eldrazi are like super cost reduced. Like, uh-oh.
And there's no board wipes. There's almost no creature removal. It's funny. So the fourth place list at this event is they're playing what's called semi-blue, which is a ROG Thrasios list. And if you look at the list, you'll notice, even though it is blue, there are no counter spells. The only interaction is snap, functionally. It is completely, it's part of like this whole like super inbred meta where they just don't have interaction and can't stop any early combos, and they just bank on other people doing that, and then they just go harder for the win, which is really funny. And I watched it lose to Alexios real hard.
Thinking about other opponents like being a Thoughtseize for you is like some of the most hilarious things you can get out of CEDH, where it's just like, my opponents are going to counter the turn 1 Thoracle, and then I can deploy my turn 1 Thoracle because the counter spells will have been used.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly. So it's very fun. I think I'm thinking about going to, so in San Diego, like right, not that far from me, in 2 weeks, there's like a CDH 15K called Fishbowl. And if I can get the proxies for Ral Monsoon Mage, I might enter that. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Ral. Ral's a super interesting card.
This card is unbelievably. I was goldfishing the list today.
Oh, yeah.
And I got you can get turn 1 wins. It's absurd.
Or at least it saw a ton of play in Modern, and it still does. Ruby Storm is still fringe meta playable. And Ruby Storm is like a real deck in Modern, and it's mostly because of Ral. Well, also because of Ruby, but Ral's definitely a contender for most valuable card that like vamped up Ruby Storm for Modern, besides, of course, Ruby. But having 8 rubies is so much better than 4.
Oh, yeah. I guess I should read Ral for people, because I do want to talk about how crazy this card is. So the front half of Ral is red and 1 for a 1/3. Instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast, which is great for any Storm deck. And then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, flip a coin. If you lose, he pings you for 1. If you win, you can transform him into the Planeswalker on the other side. The Planeswalker is a 2 loyalty thing. It's +1, reduces your instants and sorceries for 1 turn. -2 lets you deal 2 damage divided as you choose among 2 targets, and then you draw a card if you control a blue permanent. But importantly, there's the -8, which is exile the top 8 cards of your library. You can cast instants and sorceries for free. And he has a passive where he enters with extra loyalty for each instant and sorcery you've cast this turn. So what you can do is, if you cast 6 instants and sorceries and you flip him on the 6th one, then he can ult immediately. And then you flip the top 8 cards and you can cast those instants and sorceries for free. But if he has exactly 8 and dies, if you hit enough rituals off the 8, you can then recast Ral, cast another instant sorcery, flip him again, minus him again, and just ult multiple times. And then you can grape shot your own Ral to kill it, to recast it, to reflip it, to re-ult again. The deck is absurd. It's fucked up they printed this card.
That killing and replaying Ral repeatedly sounds an awful lot like a value engine.
Oh, we're segueing into the main topic. This guy's so good at podcasting.
I'm okay.
Yeah, so value engines. We talked about this very briefly on the last podcast. Alex, you said that you had noticed that your control decks were much more powerful than any more aggressive list at Magic on Atlanta.
Yeah, my 1 control deck, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. And I found that to be pretty true as well. In my, recording of 100 games, most of the random decks I build have some sort of way to repeatedly get value or repeatedly get removal or something. And I found that just repeated value engines, especially from the command zone, are absurdly powerful in casual Commander.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
So we wanted to talk about how to build one, its effects on your deck, and some of our favorite value engines on this episode.
Yeah. I mean, I want to start off by saying that there's plenty of decks that just don't need value engines.
Yeah.
Alex, you've played at least once, probably twice against my Cormella deck. And I don't think I run a value engine, honest to God, in that deck. I mostly rely on things like Brain Surge and Quick Study and instant speed draw twos and these sorts of effects that incrementally draw.
You got a bunch of big instants and sorceries that give indirect value. You have your commander that when it dies gives value, which is sometimes 1. And if you can, clone it a bunch of times, it's a bunch more. So that deck just has a lot of ways to create value with either its commander or with its instant sorceries. So it doesn't end up being all that necessary.
I'm not running a Archmage Emeritus in my instant and sorcery Cormella deck, right? In this deck, I have over 50 instants and sorceries. I don't have Archmage Emeritus though, because I'm not cantripping a bunch. It's mostly just Giant Haymaker, Giant Haymaker, Giant Haymaker, draw 2 into another Giant Haymaker, right? I don't need to be constantly refilling the hand a little bit. And when I do, it's me looping from the graveyard using Saw and Half on Cormella, which I guess is kind of a value engine, but that's basically the only one I run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Cormella is you don't need to repeatedly get value because each of your big spells is individually so much value that just a couple of them could push you pretty close to a win.
Well, I think also kind of the nature of that deck, and I see this with my Brada deck too, is when all your spells are so high mana cost and when a lot of them are so flexible, you just don't need to churn through a bunch of extra cards. You can just play cards in your hand. They don't get played very quickly. So you don't actually need to draw a bunch of cards because your hand isn't emptying out. You're not, struggling on cards in hand. You still have plenty of gas in hand. And if you're running these big, super flexible instants and sorceries, then you don't need to draw options for various situations because, what's that? I don't fucking remember what anything is called. My brain is soup tonight.
What does the card do?
What's the card that does like 4 different things? It's a counter spell.
Oh, Cryptic Command?
No, it's a 6 mana.
A Sublime Epiphany.
Yeah, if you have a Sublime Epiphany, you don't need to draw into your special answer for various situations. Sublime Epiphany does everything, always. So, like, if you're just holding that up, you don't need to draw a bunch of extra cards. You don't need to draw into anything special.
Yeah, Sublime Epiphany is my favorite buyback 0 counterspell with Cormella. But yeah, no, like I said, just reiterating that point that I started off here with, not every deck needs a value engine, right?
Yeah, I think that this is kind of like a big point between power levels of decks. I feel like if your deck is not something that runs like a repeatable value engine, if your payoffs are not very good compared to your opponent's payoffs, I think you can really fall behind. So that's one thing that I like about value engines is you don't need like a big, massive, crazy payoff if you can just loop little things over and over again. Do we want to just share some examples from our decks? Or
yeah, sure. You said loop little things over and over again. I think that's kind of a good example of what I would argue is the best type of value engine, which is the type of value engine that it's not a card that cleanly fits into a draw category.
Mm-hmm.
It is an interaction, or it is something else that just kind of gloms onto your game plan and provides you value. So like a flicker-based engine or a graveyard looping-based engine. These are a lot of times the strongest types of engines. It's not a Beast Whisperer. It's not a Dig Through Time. It's not a Rhystic Study. But, I think things that you can kind of assemble, and having just like a whole ton of these engines you can assemble a lot of times makes for the strongest option for value engines. And this is kind of what my Shroom control deck does, is it doesn't really have a whole lot of like standalone draw engines. Like All-Seeing Arbiter, you could argue, Shorikai, sure. But aside from that, it is very much like you are cobbling together various flicker-based engines and graveyard looping-based engines and other engines. And then from there, you can really get out of control.
You want to give an example of one?
Sure. So I run a card called Oversold Cemetery, and I also run a fair amount of discard engines and cycling cards. So if I get a Shorikai in play, or if I just cycle a bunch of things, Oversold Cemetery reads at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, you can turn target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's returns something back. I also have a card called Godpharaoh's Gift that at the beginning of combat on my turn, I may exile a creature card from my graveyard. If I do, create a token that's a copy of that, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. That also becomes a value engine because I have all these ETB creatures that will come in and then they'll go to the graveyard eventually, or I'll discard them and they'll go to the graveyard. And then I can get back copies of them, and then that just kind of churns through value over time. Nothing on the card reads draw a card. Nothing on the creatures I'm bringing back reads draw a card usually. Sometimes it does, but it'll be like, an artifact mage or a Zur or something, and I'll just kind of generate all this value and advantage through these permanents that interact with my graveyard.
I love your Shroom deck. It's so cool.
Alex here mentioned some of my favorites, which is like flickering and graveyard recursion, right? I have Farrakha, which is all about getting value out of your graveyard. Kellen, which is mostly about like flickering little weenies, right? Like I recruiter the guard for Felia, and now Felia can flicker recruiter the guard to tutor more creatures, or the Seriema, right? Which is the one spacecraft that gets legendary creatures to your hand. So you can create a lot of flicker value loops with cards that search for creatures and then search for those creatures and then use those creatures to flicker, like, whatever, like this like disgusting loop and whatever. That's already been covered though. And I've already talked everyone's ear off about that in previous podcast episodes. So I think I'm going to shift my focus a little bit more towards something like Judith the Scourge Diva, where it is a value engine in the form of a removal engine. Judith the Scourge Diva is a 3-mana 2/2 human shaman that says whenever a non-token creature you control dies, Judith does 1 damage to any target. And what you can do in this kind of deck is put down a Forsaken Miner, which says whenever you commit a crime, like Judith's Ping, you may pay black. If you do, return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. And then suddenly you have these very nasty plays where if you have any sack outlet, you have Black Fireball. And I just go, Black Fireball your creature. And if I don't have a threatening creature, I can Black Fireball you. And none of this is spending cards or resources because all the thing recurs and then the damage is just static. Combine this with something like Death Touch from a Basilisk Collar or Dissection Tools on Judith, and suddenly I have any number of Doomblades that I want, right? And that is card advantage. it's not drawing actual cards, but
it's virtual card advantage.
Yeah, it's lowering the amount of cards my opponents have. I literally just played Judith tonight, and my friend John just said, oh, well, creatures are banned. And I'm like, exactly.
I mean, my favorite value engine is it's got to be Salvaging Station. And this card has so many cool, like different, like random baubles that work with it. So Salvaging Station, it's a 6-mana artifact. You can tap it. It reanimates a non-creature artifact mana value 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a creature dies, you may untap this. So if you play it with Executioner's Capsule, which is 1 black for an artifact, pay black and 1, tap, sack, Executioner's Capsule, destroy target non-black creature. You can crack Executioner's Capsule, destroy a non-black creature, which triggers the untap on Salvaging Station. You respond to that, tapping Salvaging Station to put the capsule back in play and then untap it. This is literally an infinite number of Doom Blades as long as you have the mana. And again, it's not drawing a card, but I can Doom Blade as much as I want. I've functionally drawn infinite copies of Doom Blade. You can also do this with any bauble that cracks to draw a card. As creatures die, you just tap and untap it and just draw a bunch of cards, which is pretty great. I love Salvaging Station.
All right, well, we've given examples of value engines and stuff, but how would you go about like finding good value engines for your decks? I feel like this is a question that a lot of people will have. Like, it's nice to have these examples, but like, which one works best with your commander in mind, or what have you, right?
Do you want to start, Alex?
Sure. I mean, I think the best examples of value engines are going to be ones that are, as I said earlier, kind of baked into the deck's game plan, and that can take one of two forms. One of these is going to be these kind of really fundamental level value engines, like ETBs or deaths or other things interacting with the graveyard. These are going to be kind of like the most basic to your deck, and you will kind of know whether or not you can run these. A lot of times you can build in a flicker package or a recursion package pretty easily. Sometimes you can't, though. The other thing you can do is you can build in value into other things your deck is doing. So a lot of times there will be removal that contains value on it. There will also sometimes be removal that is more efficient. So if you can afford to run higher costed removal instead of lower costed options, that's going to kind of save you a card and prevent you from kind of running out of cards and deal with multiple threats instead of needing to, run a draw spell that draws into multiple removal spells to remove multiple threats. And then that can also go for, just run, if you're playing like a zombies deck, run zombies to draw cards. If you're playing a birds deck, run birds to draw cards. If you're playing an artifact creatures deck, so look for the artifact creatures to draw cards. A lot of times in these cases, you won't always hit the most powerful options. You'll sometimes give up on some of the punchier options or some of the options that might be more strictly efficient, but baking that draw in can make a deck feel really smooth. Yeah,
I think that's a good way to look at it. Just like, you can play the 1 mana, 2 mana efficient removal spell, but you can also play the 3 mana one that draws a card or whatever. And the more of those you play, you get extra value. I like that suggestion a lot. I think also one thing to look at is things that have like activated abilities. Something like Tasigur, which has an activated, it's 6 mana, black 4/5 with Delve, but it has the ability you can pay 2 hybrid Simic, mill 2 cards, return a non-land card of an opponent's choice from your graveyard to your hand. This always gets you a card, and it doesn't cost a card to get a card. Meaning the more mana you can put into Tasigur over the course of a game, if you can spend mana to get cards or creatures on board or something like that, without having to expend the cards in your hand, you will get more advantage over the course of a game.
This also applies for any activated ability that is useful to you.
Yeah.
So for example, I love the card Captivating Crew. It's a 4 mana 4/3 that for 4 mana you can gain control of an opponent's creature until end of turn. If gaining control of a creature until end of turn is useful to you, you have as many threatens in your hand as you want, as long as you have Capturing Crew in play.
Elk, any thoughts on building one?
Yeah, I mean, you'd be shocked by the number of cards. Like, you don't need to run Phyrexian Arena. This is like one of my biggest gripes with the card too. Of course, I'm gonna talk about Phyrexian Arena. Phyrexian Arena is one of the most like brain dead, joy robbing cards you could be running. Now, it's fun in like Obeka Splitter of Seconds. Like, yes, extra upkeeps. This is super cool, right? That's fine. You've used intention with Phyrexian Arena in that case. For me, though, I feel like there's just so much synergy laying in wait for you to explore. And a lot of people just go immediately for just like the simplest card, like, oh, Phyrexian Arena has been a staple for a decade, right? And that really like breaks my heart in a way, because like I feel like there's just so much cool like synergy you can build into your list. And it's of course going to vary from deck to deck. And it's hard to give like a one size fits all option to here's how you build a value engine. But I mean, I recommend watching my Scryfall tutorial or your how to build a deck video and really just trying to find unique value engines. And of course you can fail, right? I still run on stock up in Cormella, right? Like there's no shame in like going back on those staples if you need them. But like, I wish people would just dig slightly more because there's so much funny stuff you can do and with good cards as well. In my Kellen deck, for instance, what's a good card? Lauren of the Third Path. I'm just running it. It's just a great removal. It's nice to flicker it, right? Just blowing up artifacts or enchantments on her entry. However, she has another ability that taps you and target opponent each draw a card. And when you combo that with Spirit of the Labyrinth, that's card advantage. Plain and simple. Like your opponent doesn't draw the card and you do. Of course, I'm meaning you activate it on their turn when they've drawn their card for turn already. Right? So there's so many of these like cute little micro synergies that you can fill your deck with. And then just like that, you actually have like a whole hand all the time. Where as opposed to just like, you know, I'm going to be safe and run Phyrexian Arena. Because Phyrexian Arena, I think it was a Spice 8 rack who said like, Swords to Plowing Krenko is pretty expected, but like using Tivadar of Thorn and blowing up a Krenko, right, is just so much funnier. And I feel like there's just like every single deck has an option that is like in theme, in that can draw a ton of cards for you.
I kind of like Phyrexian Arena as like a repeatable value engine.
I know. It's
I like
just
it so much more than a random one-off draw spell.
I don't think...
Unless the draw spell draws like a lot of cards. Like a Painful Truths is great. It's like 3 cards.
Yeah, like... I don't know. I don't feel like I agree because okay. If you're using Phyrexian Arena with intention, I understand that. That's totally fine. That I like. Great. I already gave you the Obeka Splitter of Seconds example, but like I've been working on an Orzhov Reanimator deck recently, and the conceit of the deck is that like you multi-reanimate a bunch of creatures at once. That being Elish Norn, the one that doubles enter the battlefield abilities, and Mr. Negative. And what you can do is you can swap life totals and then swap back and then draw a ton of cards, right?
Right, because Mr. Negative...
So yeah, Mr. Negative enters, swaps life totals with an opponent. If you lost life this way, you draw that many cards. So when you swap and then swap again with the same player, you guarantee lose life.
Right, yeah, because it counts as gaining and losing life when you swap life totals.
Yes, exactly. So in that deck, if you put Phyrexian Arena in, I'm going to hit you with a hammer. Like, it's like, why? When you could literally like draw 20 cards with that combo and you can get it any number of ways. It's also built around Villas, Broker of Blood, and reanimate effects like True Reanimates, like Phyrexian Delver, or Reanimate itself, or Shielded Restoration, which I'll say return a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield and then you lose life equal to its mana value. That Villas sees that life loss and draws you 8 cards. So I feel like this is what I mean more than anything. It's just like, I wish people would, if they already have a value engine, they can kind of lean into more and more to like not run the generic stuff, even though it's like a little bit of a safety blanket. Like just try exploring like cooler, funnier options first before going for the staples is what all I mean.
Yeah. No, I get that. I agree with that as well. Back to value engines for 1 second. I do want to also say basically almost any effect in this game can be done multiple times if you try hard enough. The easiest ones are enter the battlefield effects or death triggers. There's a million and one ways to get those back. If you have a card that lets you flicker a creature every turn, like Conjurer's Closet, you can play that and there's your value engine. That plus any ETB, right? If you have like Oversold Cemetery, like Snail said, that plus a creature that sacrifices itself to do something, that's a value engine. You can have it sacrifice itself and the cemetery puts it back in hand. Anything that lets you like do a thing multiple times can be a value engine, especially if you're able to really make use of whatever that effect is.
Yeah, definitely. There's all sorts of like, paths to creating value engines, whether that be self bounce or flicker or, aristocrats or what have you, right? There's just so many options out there.
Or clones. I think one of my favorites is, I talked about this in my most recent budget deck video, but Kairi. Kairi? It is, isn't it? Yeah. It's mill 6, add 2 instants or sorceries back to hand.
Oh, okay.
So every instant or sorcery that is a clone effect creates the clone of Kahiri, and then that one dies, and you can get the clone effect back to hand and any other card. So it's just +1 card every time you do that.
Yeah. Reminds me a lot of Cormella Saw and Have.
Yes.
I'm just going to say that my favorite card when I was at Magic on Atlanta was Cataclysmic Gearhulk, and figuring out creative ways to get that onto the board over and over again is an evil, evil thing that I love to do. And it gains a lot of value if you think about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was going to say all the Gear Hulks are like really good flicker targets. Value targets. Cataclysmic Gear Hulk is so crazy to blink.
Yeah. I don't know. Coalstoke Gear Hulk exists. That thing sucks.
Is that the
Discard one?
No. It's 1 red, red, black, black. Return target creature card with mana value 4 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste to exile
finality
it.
counter on it.
Yeah, with the finality counter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like really mid.
See, the finality counter makes this not a value engine because you can't keep reanimating and sacking the same 4-drop.
Yeah, I know. Have you read Carnage, Crimson Chaos from Spider-Man? That's if Coalstoke Gear Hulk was good.
Let's see. Carnage is red, black 2 for a symbiote villain 4/3 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains this creature attacks each combat if able, And when this creature deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it. And then Carnage has chaos for black, red. Okay, that's pretty sweet. So you just have to blink Carnage, and then you keep reanimating something that just has to attack. And then if it has, some effect or whatever.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
That's cool.
Oh man, that card would slap in my Malphegor deck. Although that deck is currently purely Universes Within, so I don't want to tarnish it.
Yeah,
you gotta just print out a proxy of the Deserix Gift of Servitude.
True.
Moving on to the Beseech the Mirror section. This is where you beseech us for answers. You just need to put mirror, mirror in your question, and we'll get to it on the podcast. This one comes from Jester the Clown on Spotify. They say, mirror, mirror, I get confused and eat the food token out of my Bloomborough booster pack to ask, do you have any secret tech for a mono blue deck similar to how you use Jaxus and Imperial Recruiter or Thalia's Lancers and Felia? So they're looking for a value engine in mono blue.
Transit Mage and Conjurer's Closet.
Transit Mage and Conjurer's Closet is a very good one.
Yeah, that one's good. Because the Transit Mage can tutor the closet flickers the mage, which lets you tutor more things, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that one's hilarious. I'm actually considering that for an artifact deck that uses, I might end up building that uses Mirror of Fate, which is a 5-mana artifact that exiles your whole library except for up to 7 cards you get to pick that are face up exiled, and then you make that your new library. So you get Mystic Forge, you play the mirror and you copy it with like a Phyrexian Metamorph, which is a 4-mana thing you can get off the Transit Mage. And then you crack the first one, exile your whole library, crack the second one, stack your library, and then you Mystic Forge, play all those cards. And then you get like Academy Ruins and you get back the Mirror of Fate, and then you make a god library of artifacts every turn. It's basically like infinitely worse than Doomsday, but it's hilarious.
It's build your own bad Doomsday. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's mono blue bad Doomsday. That being said, I think my favorite mono blue engine is probably like Archaeomancer loops. You can do a lot of stupid stuff with wizard cycling. So for instance, you go Wizard Cycle Step Through for 2, get Archaeomancer, play Archaeomancer, get Step Through back, Step Through for Micromancer or Spellseeker, and then that can get Hide on the Ceiling from Spider-Man. And then you can X's 2 Hide on the Ceiling and flicker your Archaeomancer and Spellseeker every turn to get back the Hide on the Ceiling and get a new 2 mana or less instant or sorcery from your deck every turn. And from there, shenanigans.
That's pretty funny. I'm going to suggest one with Hakeem Loreweaver. He is a goofy commander from Mirage. 3 blue for a 2/4 human wizard with flying. You can pay blue, return an aura from your graveyard to the battlefield, attach it to Hakeem. You can only activate this during your upkeep if Hakeem isn't enchanted. And then he can also pay blue tap and blow up all the auras attached to him. That's a lot of nonsense to say. Basically what you do in this deck is you play control magic enchantments, things that gain control of a creature your opponent controls. So you do that, you yoink one of their creatures, and then when their creature inevitably dies, it goes to the graveyard. You can play your commander, activate him, put the control magic on your commander, which does nothing because you already control him. But then if you use the card Crown of the Ages, it's a 2-mana artifact. You can pay 4 tap, move an enchantment to another creature. So you just move the control magic to someone else's thing and you steal it. And if you have multiple control magics, you just start looping them onto your commander and then passing them out to other players' things and stealing them. And then as their creatures die, they go to the yard and you just put it back on your commander. This commander is completely underplayed. I think there's 312 decks on EDH Rec. That was a good question. Forsaken to Limbo on YouTube asks, Mirror, mirror, I stand up angrily because my opponent spilt monster on all my cards to ask, how are you? Also, as there aren't any expensive cards you're after, because last time we talked about our white whales or whatever, and we didn't have anyone. Is there anything that you strive for? Artist proof, signatures, altars, specific experiences, etc. Do you guys have anything like that where you're looking for, I really want this, like an artist signature or anything physical onto cards, or any specific experience related to Magic?
Okay, so first of all, I'm fine. That was the first question.
Yeah.
Second of all, I almost bought like a $700 artist proof with a painting on the back from MagicCon Atlanta. And the only thing that stopped me was that it was already sold literally like 1 minute before I got to the front of the line. I was in line for Scott and Fisher, who did the original Mother of Runes.
Oh, nice.
And there was a painting, there was an artist proof Mother of Runes, like the original artist proof, with a painting on the back of like Mother of Runes when she was like a younger woman. And I was like, that's fucking sick. It was so cool. Like Mother of Runes at like the peak of her priestly power. And I'm like, that rules. Sadly, like I said, it was sold, but that's, slight bright side, I get to pay rent this month.
What about you, Alex? I know you're not doing well, I guess.
Oh yeah, I'm still sick. I don't know. I've gotten artist prints of a couple cards. I have an artist print of Ashiok I have on my wall because Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, because I love that card.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun terrorizing it with people in Standard when I was a teenager. Aside from that, I don't really know. I'm not really a big, not really a big collector guy. Although I might get more into playmats because I enjoyed being forced into playmat usage at MagicCon Atlanta by the number of crumbs that were on the tables. I kind of enjoyed having a pretty thing to put my cards onto that was all my own.
For the listeners at home, this guy doesn't use a playmat.
Oh yeah, no. I like MagicCon Vegas. I was like raw dogging it on those tables.
You do use sleeves. You do use sleeves at least.
Oh yeah, for sure. I am far too forceful with my shuffling and playing to not use sleeves.
You say that. I literally mind controlled this guy. And when I did, all of his cards were like bunny eared in the top right corner by how hard this guy plays his cards on the table. Like all of them had like a slight bend in the upper right hand corner. So it's not marked cards because they were all like that.
They're all bent the same way.
Look, you got to make a statement. It's essential to my commander philosophy.
This is just like a dog-eared deck. Your decks have like 3 corners.
No, they are. Yeah, it's kind of bad.
For me, I really love artist proofs. The ones that are like blank on the back. I think those are super cool. And also like pretty much, I mean, almost always, it depends on where you get it. Usually you buy those from the artist directly, which I always think is like an extra kind of bonus. Like I'm willing to spend a little bit more on a card for an artist proof because like I'm literally handing the money to the artist directly. So I always kind of like that. And I just think they're kind of cool. It's sort of neat. Yusuf put an image of a hot dog on screen.